Well, hello, hello, and welcome back to the Curious Coaches Lemonade Stand. I'm your host, Dr. Gina, and very happy to be here with you as always. If this is your first time stopping by the Lemonade Stand, welcome. This is where we invite you to join us here at your friendly neighborhood virtual third spot, where you can come and grab a glass of something insightful, something refreshing, something that makes you stop and go, hmm. And if you've been here before, thank you so much. Truly appreciate you spending the time to return and come back and get something else to drink that you can share with someone else that might benefit from the learning that you have after watching or listening to what we're sharing here today. This is a unique episode. For the first time, we are doing a wonderful, beautiful, and powerful panel of amazing Black women. I have three, not one, not two, but three fantastic guests today. And I'm so happy that they have taken the time out of their schedules to spend with us here at the Lemonade Stand. So I'm just going to go in order from how I see you on my screen, ladies. And I'm going to start with you, Courtney, if you can introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. So, hello everyone. My name is Courtney Harriet, born and raised in the East End of Toronto. Very proud to be living in Scarborough now. I'm a learning and development professional in terms of my 9 to 5. Outside of that, I am an avid sports person. So, coming off of my Seahawks win, so go Seahawks, hopefully into the next year. Maybe the Eagles next year. I was kind of hoping that they do something this year, but someone else's turn. So I'm so just really happy to be here and finally being able to be on this podcast with you, Tina.
Thank you so much. Yes, this has been a long time coming, Courtney. And I think it also has for Nikki, if I can introduce Nikki and she can introduce herself.
Yeah, awesome. It's so hard to believe that I'm actually on this podcast, Gina, because we've talked about this for so long. And
Yes.
really glad that you invited me to be here. So I'm Nikki, and I like to call myself a citizen of the world. This is the seventh country I've lived in, but I'm originally from Jamaica. And now I live in Canada. Yes, my daughter, who is 14, asks me all the time, what made you move from the warm tropical heat of Jamaica to this? So it's pretty interesting.
Still asking. Still asking my parents.
I do question myself sometimes, but love living here, of course. It's been a great experience. I've learned a lot about myself through all the travels, I would say. My hope in life is to see 100 countries before I die, but COVID slowed that down. And generally speaking, what I love to do is spend a lot of time with my family. I mentioned my daughter who's 14, my husband, and I'm an HR professional first, but I really, really enjoy having these types of conversations. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this podcast. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you, Nikki. Very much a pleasure to have you. And finally, another mentor of mine, because I would say Nikki's been a mentor of mine. Courtney has influenced me in lots of ways, whether she even knows it or not. And finally, I need to introduce you as well to Emerelle, just another great, powerful, wonderful woman. Emerelle, over to you.
Why, thank you, Dr. Gina. And hello, everyone. I am so thrilled to be part of this delicious lemonade stand. So, Amarel Saunders Endow is my name. I'm Jamaican born, and I have been in this wonderful country for 52 years. I won't, well, yeah, I immigrated in 1974, and I live and work in East Toronto in Scarborough. Love Scarborough. I'm a management consultant and run my own firm, Amaral and Company. And I provide services to organizations. I do governance work, equity work, and communications work. And I'm just delighted to be participating in this conversation today.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. I have clearly assembled, you know, here's an example of unconscious bias. An amazing panel of Jamaican women. Yep, calling myself out. I did it. I ain't sorry for it. I'm quite proud of it. So, welcome to everyone here. And so, in saying that, I think it's actually kind of funny and ironic that I'm going to turn this on its head, because what are we here to talk about is this idea of trusting ourselves and how this links to concepts like confidence, or, what comes up a lot in my coaching clients' conversations, that, evil and insidious thing, the imposter syndrome. These are the kinds of things that have bubbled up in conversations I've had, separately and together with these wonderful ladies over months, days, and years. And so I think it's a really important time to bring that up. We're still fairly early into a new year where people are, really aligning their intentions and focusing on what they want to achieve and who they want to be and how they want to show up in this year. And I think this is an important topic to broach. I'll do this kind of, I'll popcorn anyone who wants to jump in. When we think about self-trust, let's start by defining that. What does that mean to you? Anyone wants to take a stab at that?
So I don't like pregnant pauses, so I'm usually the one. Okay, I'll give it 2 or 3 seconds, and if no one's saying anything, I'm gonna speak. So when we think about self-trust, it's really about, trusting yourself. Like, I think we need to have a set of values by which we live by, like a strong moral compass that says, these are my beliefs and values, and any decision I make, I really need to honor that for myself, in terms of wanting to protect, of course, my integrity, reputation, and making sure that my mental health is also in check. So, any decisions I make about, a project I'm going to take, or maybe a job, I make sure that it has to be values aligned, and that when I make that decision, it's honoring, what I believe in, and I feel that it's going to be good for me, and that I have an opportunity to contribute. It's really making sure that, the self-trust, that you trust in yourself and in your values and your beliefs, and you try and make sure that you're following that in any decision making capacity.
Hmm. Thank you for starting us off, Emerald. Because I'm really hearing in that the clarity of understanding who you are, what you stand for, like what really guides you, what your principles are, is critically important then as building this foundation to self-trust.
Absolutely. It's not about going with the status quo or groupthink, or being influenced so much by, you know, the status quo or what other people think. But I think you need to feel confident in yourself and in your values, and you honor yourself, I think, in that way.
Ah, I love that. Can I add something to that, Gina?
Please, please do.
So as I was hearing both of you talk about this, I was thinking about myself earlier in my career. And oftentimes I would look outside of myself for reassurance, right? But over time, what I've learned, of course, also with age, is that I rely more on my judgment. And so when I think about self trust, what I'm thinking is it's like I trust my judgment. I know I can handle uncertainty. And I know I don't need that constant validation that maybe years ago I felt I needed. So I think it also like ties back to thinking about self-trust, knowing that you're not always going to have the answers immediately, but trust that because you've done it in the past and you know it has worked for you, you're going to have the ability to figure things out. So I think it's a really there's so much you can unpack when you talk about self-trust.
Hearing that experience, it's a wisdom that comes born of maturity, because you've gone through some things and you recognize you can't let others shape that moral compass that Emerald was describing. That's what that validation and external reassurance seeking that looks to that. And self-trust is a place where not only is it about you trusting you, it's you defining the parameters and kind of the indicators that allow you to trust yourself too.
Yeah, and those values that Amaral spoke to, like really knowing these are my values, this is what's important, this is what shaped me, and this is what's going to guide me for the rest of everything that I do.
Even along those lines around the decision making, just having the confidence to make the decision and owning the outcome good or bad. And knowing that if it ends up that, I don't do too well with whatever the outcome was, that I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to have a learning moment that the next time, if there happens to be a next time, like I know how to work through it. I know how to manage my, thought process. I know how to manage the emotions behind that. It's the resiliency piece. That's definitely taken a few knockdowns to be able to feel more confident. And it's not to say that I'm at a point where it doesn't matter, but I will say with age, and I know Nikki's probably going to say like what age, but with age, even for me, you do get to a point where the validation from other folks don't matter as much,
Yeah.
because you have a sense of your own capabilities, and you know what you can do very well and what you maybe could experiment with anyway, even if it's new, but you'll still do pretty well even if you fail a little bit, or you stumble, that you basically have the ability to do anything. And it's the being Jamaican women on here, it's just the way that we are, that we're kind of raised that we're able to do anything. And I think being able to hold on to that through, schooling, but even in my career now, that's really gotten me to where I am.
Yeah.
That really resonates for me because, I'm having a chicken and the egg moment right now between self-trust and resilience. What came first? That they're so deeply connected for me because when I think about trusting myself, yes, it has a lot to do with because I believe I can come back if something goes wrong, right? If that decision was not the best one when I thought it was, it's okay. I'll figure it out. We'll make a different one. We'll move forward. What makes the difference? Like, what happened along the way from the younger selves? Because it sounds like, we kind of are in agreement that in our younger years, it would have been different. The external validation matters more, right? Someone else's reassurance or their idea of saying, yeah, that's a good idea. That justification is imperative for us to perhaps move forward with something. So I know that we've already, alluded to its age, its expertise, its wisdom that comes with those experiences. What turns down the volume on other people's opinion and turns up the trust in ourselves?
Mhm. I
Hmm.
think I think for me it's more, and maybe it's sort of being or having a good social circle for me, where I'm able to have folks to be honest with me about, how I show up or what I did or how I did it. I think that's really helped me to move from the validation, and also even to question who I'm getting validation from. Like, why am I
Yes.
seeking validation from this individual when XYZ? And just really understanding, like, why do I need that?
Mhm.
I know what's been really instrumental is my mom all the time, and the advice that she gives, and also the ability to maybe have a little banter back and forth if we disagree. It's a safe space for me to be able to push back and find my voice, with my mom, and then ultimately with family, and then close friends. I know that sometimes people have friends where they tell them all the good things about them, and they don't necessarily challenge them. I think for me, what's been really helpful, especially as I get on in life, is that my circle is obviously gotten smaller, but I value the people that are still here. And there's some folks I've known since daycare, to be honest, and there's some people
Wow.
that met, maybe a year ago, and everything and every time in between. But not everybody I do call a friend. Not everybody I do respect in the same way. And I respect those who are willing to tell me, Courtney, you got this one wrong. I don't know what you were thinking. Respect people more who are able to do that with me. And I think that's allowed me to trust my own decisions and the paths that I take, because I have people who will support me regardless of the decisions I make. They will not judge me for it. It's more about
Yeah.
how they add to me being an even better person.
Love that because there's that mirroring. People are offering you an honest mirror, but they're doing it in a safe space. They created that safety. So important elements I'm hearing there.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they do it through love and caring. Like, they're not giving me that feedback maliciously. They're doing it with that positive and caring intent.
That trust is there. You
Yeah.
trust that they have good intention when they're
Yeah.
giving it to you, and that makes
Yeah.
all the difference.
Yeah. Mhm.
Want to say I wish I had a really strong network when I was younger, and I don't think I did. And the advice that I give to those young folks coming up is to make sure that you surround yourself with a strong network, with strong, positive people who can support your goals and ideas. So, looking back, I wish I had done that earlier in my career. Now, um, like Courtney, and I'm sure Nikki as well, I have a smaller, close knit, network that I sometimes reach out to. But I think it might be the self confidence. I don't often feel that I need to seek validation or others' opinions, except of course from my partner. And even I wonder if I do ask him, but I usually do. We usually have good conversations. So I do think I really lean into the concept of self-trust. I'll sit with an idea, I'll weigh the pros and cons, and then and sometimes I take too long to make a decision, but when I do make the decision, I'll give it, my whole heart, and I'll feel really confident. And I want to pick up on a point that Courtney made earlier about using, let's see, something that doesn't go quite right as a learning opportunity. I think that's also critical to self trust and self confidence and resiliency, because I think often we beat ourselves up
Yeah.
and we'll hold, like, that failure piece, as
Mm.
opposed to saying, okay, that didn't quite work out. What can I learn from it and how can I do it differently? And I really think we need to give ourselves grace to be able to use a lot of, let's say, the missteps in our life, as learning opportunities and then opportunities to, learn and grow and better ourselves. So I really appreciate that sharing, Courtney.
Yeah, I love that too. And Gina, I'm looking at you and I remember talking to you after you'd been through something, because you've been through many things. You're one of the most resilient people I
I
know.
hear your voice in my head once a day, Nikki, saying, "Girl, you were meant for hard things."
And I remember saying that to you, but what I remembered as Amarel was talking was when we were having this conversation, and I was like, "Oh, Gina," and you said to me, "Nikki, I just keep saying to myself, I don't say why did this happen to me. I say to myself, what did this happen for?" And I really think, and I'm going to go back to Amarel. I loved what you said about surrounding yourself with the right people, because Courtney's right. I mean, when I think back to one of my longest friends, her favorite saying to me whenever I picked up the phone to ask her for advice or share something that happened was a big sigh and, "Nikki, I'm your friend, not your fan. So I'm going to tell you exactly what that means." And you're absolutely correct. The earlier we get that, it's so much easier for us to really have that self confidence that really helps us to step into challenging situations. And I'm also going to touch on my mom. Courtney and I always talk, and Gina, we always talk about our family and the strong influence they had. And I traveled a lot from early. And I remember every time my parents would drop me at the airport, that was their opportunity to have a conversation. And that lives in my head. When we'd get to the airport, my mom's favorite thing was, "Okay, I want you to remember that you're representing the Spences. That's my dad's side of the family. You're representing the Rineys. That's her side of the family. You're representing women. You're
No pressure.
representing Jamaica. And my shoulders were just going
The
down,
whole
down,
country.
down.
The whole country on your back. Yep.
The whole country, my
Oh,
generation,
and have a good time. Have a good time.
the everybody was in going on this plane with me to wherever I was going. But when I got to these places, she was absolutely correct. Like, it's about representation, but it's also like just being confident in who you are really helps. And I never realized all of those lessons until as we got older. Because Gina, to your point, where how do we get to this point where we doubt ourselves? It's all the people and all the experiences. So take me landing in places where, the only thing they knew about Jamaica might have been Merlin Oddie or Donald Quarry, or, I'm dating myself. You
Bob Marley.
Marley. But being in places where you are different, it really causes you to pause for a minute and say, "Hey, do I belong here?" But then you have those friends and family and those experiences in your mind, and that's why in my early 20s, I was going about trying to, prove myself. The older I got, it was leaning on the experience, the things that I had done so well that I could say, "Yeah, I belong here. I can do this. I can do hard things like you, Gina." Because age and going through it is really super important to be able to build that. It's one of those things where we say all the time, it's horrible when we go through challenging times, but it really, really builds us if we lean into it in the way that we're meant to, and if we learn from it in the way that we're meant to.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the coach in me is going to jump out and say the learning part is the curious coach's lemonade stand. That's the curious part, right? The learning part is open to that experience, not as a failure to judge ourselves that it's a failure and blame ourselves and take that on, but rather to look at it with curiosity and say, how could I have done this differently? What would I do next time? What am I carrying with me from this? And it's not an easy shift. It really isn't. I still have to very purposely and intentionally move myself from that place of judgment to curiosity when it's about me.
Mhm.
Do you find the same? Like, is it easier for you to do that for others than it is for yourself? Or is
Of
that a me thing?
course. Of
All the
course.
time.
Yes.
Yeah, I find now as I'm advancing in years that and I have to remind myself and tell myself this, that it's important to be kind and gentle
Yes.
with myself and practice self-care. And I think when many of us are taking care of families and children, we cut a lot of slack, I think, on other people and not so much on ourselves.
Yeah.
And then I think that increases, the level of stress and tension, which is no surprise why I think disproportionately Black women suffer from
Yeah.
higher rates of hypertension and stress than probably the average population,
Hmm.
is because, you know, I think we also have to deal with this sort of like perfectionist kind of attitude that I think we need to prove ourselves. I know that we were always told that you need to work twice as
Twice as hard
hard,
for half as
right?
much.
Yeah, right. And so we take that on instead of saying, hold on, I am good enough, right? And depending on who you surround yourselves with, you might not be hearing those positive affirmations
Mm.
and messages about, your value and the importance of self-care until maybe sometimes it's too late or getting too late, or your body and mind starts to send you signals
Yep.
that you need to slow things down and, like, focus more on yourself as opposed to those around you. I always say, if I'm not healthy and happy, then I can't be the best parent or the best partner. So it is important to prioritize. And so now I'm at the top of the priority list as opposed to maybe, five or six. And it feels really good. I love it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's wonderful to hear because I think that's a very important link you're calling out, Emerald, is the link between self-trust and self-care. And I love to talk about self-care. And I always find it intriguing that I have a lot of girlfriends, especially, who they think that I'm fantastic at self-care. And I'm always intrigued to get more feedback. What makes you think? And they're like, well, you do things for yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's true. But I
Mhm.
can also admit there are ways where I'm terrible at this. So I did an exercise that I'm, sure I've coached clients to do, and I didn't want to be a hypocrite and said, let me do it myself, of taking a moment to jot down how I speak to myself during the day for a week. Because I'm always encouraging clients when they're beating themselves up, how would you address this if this was happening to your best friend, to your partner, to your child, your sibling? How would you advise and guide them through this? Speak to yourself in that way. And then I thought, are you doing this, Gina? So I jotted things. I can't even read to you what I jotted down because there's just a whole heap of curse words and it's horrifying. Like the way I spoke to myself is horrifying. And it's still a bit of an is as opposed to a was because I'm paying attention and aware of it now. But boy, is it still a work in progress.
Mhm.
It appalls me to put pen to paper and see what I say to myself.
Mhm.
How do y'all fare in that? When you speak to yourselves, are you offering yourself that self compassion that you would give as your best to others, to people, as you say, Emerald, that are the top of your priority list? Or do you find that you're lower down on the rungs and not speaking and treating yourself as well? Because to me, this is intimately linked to how well you trust yourself too.
Yeah. Can I jump in there? Because I'm a big proponent of self-compassion. And I think one of the things that we have to admit, we're human. And I remember a long time ago that phrase, practice makes perfect. Someone said to me, Nikki, don't say that. Practice makes progress because we'll never be perfect. And if we're aspiring to be perfect, then we're going to always be beating ourselves up and not talking to ourselves with compassion. And I did a lot of reading on self compassion. Kristen Neff has a really great book about it. And it's that piece around first starting with mindfulness like, how am I feeling? And oftentimes throughout the day, I'll check in like, what am I feeling? How am I feeling? Right. So that mindfulness, the universality, I think is so important to all of us because all of us know this when we are talking to people who are going through tough things. Sometimes they think it's just themselves, right? We are all subject to challenges, issues, whether it be for ourselves or our family. So it's like that a piece around I'm not alone. Let me find my tribe. Let me find my village. Let me find people who I can really trust to hold a space for me. And so that's important for me. But you're right. The part that's hard is that compassion, like that piece where I'm kind to myself. I speak to myself the same way I speak to you, Gina, when we have that coaching conversation, or Courtney. Like, am I really sorry? So I find that no, there's no perfection there. There is times when you say to yourself, why did I think that? Or why did I feel that way? And you try to reverse and do better next time. But we're human. So I think we'll constantly slip. I think the key is like, are you catching yourself every now and then, especially when it's really egregious and you're saying to yourself, okay, I really, really, I have to grant myself grace,
Yes.
and I think those of us like Amaral, I think you mentioned your parent, working mothers, this whole mom guilt, all those sorts of things have us not talking to ourselves like we would talk to a friend. And I think it's really important to reset, but also recognize we're going to make mistakes over and over again, but just reset and not be in that all the time.
Uh, for me, it's a work in progress. I feel like that I need to pack my day. And so if I'm just, chilling on the couch, I'm like, okay, Emerald, there's at least 10 things that you should be doing, right?
I hate
So
the word should. I hate it so much.
that, right? Right? So there's that, right? And I'm like, actually, no, I worked hard today. I'm just gonna enjoy sitting on the couch and doing nothing. So now I'm actually practicing it more, and I'm like, well, tonight I'm definitely not making dinner. I'll make dinner for myself. Everyone else, everyone's an adult in this space. Figure it out, right? And so I'm starting to practice more
Hmm.
self compassion. I think that's an area of development for me, shall we say.
That's fair. I'm going to even call out something you said there because you said, I've worked really hard today. I've earned this. I very much align with that. And I'm trying to move from that to, I don't have to earn my rest. My rest in itself is productive and it fills my cup and allows me to, as you said, Amaral, be a better spouse, parent,
Right.
sibling, daughter, all them things.
Yeah.
And so that is a really, really hard development milestone to crack that I'm finding is to grant yourself the permission and the absolute, just enjoyment of rest as itself being productive and I don't have to earn it. I don't have to earn my vacation or, my night on the town or, that pretty lipstick I want to buy. I
Well,
deserve those things. It's okay.
so here's the real live example of this. My husband's currently in West Africa. He's in Guinea Conakry. It's 30 degrees and sunny every day, and he has, all kinds of people supporting his, lovely lifestyle. And he calls almost every day, and he seems so relaxed and happy. The
Poor
increase
you,
in
Amber.
vitamin D. And he reminds me that, I did invite you to come. And your message to me was always, I'm too busy. And, how busy can you be? You could have brought your laptop. You could have worked here. The Wi-Fi here is just as good, if not better than Toronto. The 5G network goes under the Atlantic Ocean.
How
I'm
did
like,
you
yes,
tell Food you
okay.
know? How
Well,
did you
Yeah. Amarel, I'm mad at you. You.
yeah, and he left fairly shortly after that historic snowfall. So I'm like, yeah, I should have, but so again, work in progress. I'm like, okay, won't make that mistake again. The next time you ask, I will be in attendance.
That's right.
Perfect example of
Hard,
learning.
really hard. I find.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I find that it kind of ebbs and flows. It's definitely a work in progress. I feel like it's a bit of extremes with me, where it's like weekends, it's absolutely I don't want to do anything at all, absolutely nothing. And I'm very guarded about sleep. That is a main thing for me. Like I'm pretty much routine. I think there's a lot of jokes and memes that go around that we have a lot of day parties now because our generation, we went out at night. We still want to party, but we want to be in bed. So I'm very much like if it's after 8 o'clock, probably not going to see me.
This is
Because
why
I
Courtney hasn't answered my invitation to go out tomorrow night.
yeah,
Now
I
now I
know. I'm going
understand.
to dinner at 6:30. So that's why I was like, I don't really know about going to a party after. But I might surprise you and see you there. But I'm very guarded. There's certain things I'm like this is the hill I'm gonna die on, which is sleep. I need to make sure that I get sleep. I'm not always great with it, but I'll at least get my 6 hours. 8 hours usually is what I strive for. And like my phone will turn off the whole nine because I need that. I need that rest that if I can't take a few days to go somewhere or anything. I need to figure out how to recharge like every day. And so being guarded about sleep when I come home, especially now that I'm in the office a lot more, it's really as soon as I leave the office, it's really rare you're going to see me turn on my laptop. It's as soon as I leave the office, I am done for the day. It's just going to have to wait. And I just have to give myself that space. And to your point, it's not about earning it. Like I just deserve this. This is just life. I don't have to work this hard for what, because I think about my doctor who had passed away during COVID. And I remember him, he delivered me. And I actually thought if I had kids, he'd probably be around for, that event. And, he was super healthy, had a heart attack a few years before, but never smoked any of this. And then during COVID, he was starting to share the frustrations of, they had to downsize their office. They didn't have the help they had. They had to get rid of their nurses. So the doctors are doing more admin and he's just double booked. And then we were supposed to go in for our checkup. And my mom's known him since she came to this country. Like he used to be at the they used to have like their domino games when they lived over at like Lawrence and Kiel or somewhere over there. And when he graduated from U of T, like he knew all these guys from when he would just kind of hang out with them. And so everybody went to his practice. And one day his nurse called and said that he had passed away. I think it was just around Thanksgiving or just before Thanksgiving. And it was devastating because here's a doctor that really felt like family. My mom was second to when her mother passed away. She was really distraught because this is someone that she's known for since she came to Canada. And he used to go to Jamaica or California about 4 months of the year. He didn't really get to properly retire. And that has always made me think about how I want to work and enjoy life. that there's a lot of times when people, they just barely get to retire and they've dropped dead. And
Yes.
work so
Yes, it's
hard,
very
you
common.
save this money, you put money into buying a home or building a home, and you don't get to enjoy it. So for me, I think what I'm trying my best to do is to really think about like what's going to be important for me as I move through my career, and that self awareness around how I spend my time, who I spend my time with, particularly with myself, and not having to apologize if I don't want to do anything. If I don't want to go somewhere, I don't have to go. I'm not obligated. It's about what do I want to do? And sometimes rest isn't just about like almost bed rot. Sometimes it's just about I want to go for a walk. I want to go, like you said, buy a nice little like, new lipstick or something. Like that also gives me a recharge because I'm doing something that
Mm,
I really like. Like I want to bake. That's my thing. Although it is work, but it's work I enjoy. It gives me rest in a different way. And so I'm a big proponent of just like if you need to take time out to do something that you enjoy that is not work related, it just allows your brain to function differently. And
Yeah.
that also allows you to rest. So just being a lot more conscious about what rest looks like for me. And again, like sometimes it's really extreme where it's like, yeah, I'm really great. I'm getting my sleep and whatnot. And then the next time it's like I feel like I haven't gotten any sleep. I haven't been able to do something even simple as organizing my house. And then I have to snap back. So I'm trying to get to a point where I can be middle of the road, where it's not extreme, where it's like I think I'm getting a lot of rest and then I'm getting absolutely none. I need to find that balance, and that's sort of where I am.
I appreciate that. I appreciate also, your call out that the rest is what recharges you, and you are very aware of that. And, as you're talking about the day parties and thing, I think about how different, I guess, my system is. I mean, I like rest. I like sleeping too, but I'm still gonna go out and I'm still gonna, bleach and rave and all them things and stay out way too late at night. I want to sleep after. I may or may not get it, but somehow that recharges me. Like
Mm.
going out and spending that energy recharges me. But you also
Good
had
party, to be honest, does it. Like every so
yeah.
often you go to
Oh,
a
for
really good
sure.
party and
Sure.
you're
It
staying
does,
up till two
because
in the
what
morning.
happened define what a good party is, right? It's
Yeah.
usually the music was great. Music
Good
fills your cup,
company.
it fills your soul. You saw people, you hadn't seen in from 19 how long, or you met some great people and had amazing conversation with them and clicked, or, like there's reasons that to me help us understand, okay, this aligns with these values of mine, for example, and that's how this is actually giving energy, even though hypothetically dancing for 6 hours should have drained my energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the key. Like, we've got to know what fills our cup. Like, what is it that is the thing for me? Is it sleep? Is it parties? Is it baking? Is it cooking? Is it socializing? Is it staying in the basement and watching sports? It really is different for everyone. But I think that's part of where we get back to this thing about age. The older you get, the less you are about pleasing people, the more you're about that confidence to say, yes, it'd be really nice to go to that party with you, Gina, but I really, I have some other things I need to do. Don't take it personally. Um, and I think those are the things that help us to sort of prioritize, get more bounce in our step to be able to handle what we need to do. And again, if I think about my 14-year-old, she says yes to everybody and everything. And she says, I don't want to hurt their feelings. And that's real to them. And when we're younger, that's the reality. We think when we say no, we're hurting people's feelings.
Mhm.
Not. But you only learn that the older you get and the less that you're about, again, pleasing people, trying to make your friends happy or people around you happy, but more about being real and creating solid boundaries. And that's why, again, the older we get, we've gone through all of these different things and we start to see the reality of it all. And even as we speak, we talk about these great friendships we have. We also lose great friendships. The friendships we thought were great, because you start to realize that they're not empowering me. They're bringing me down when I'm, going through something. So I think, again, all of these things help us as we grow. Our self confidence definitely grows, and that helps us to just be more confident and own what we're trying to deliver or work on.
Well, let me just drop what we talked about at the beginning of the call on the table right now.
Mhm.
This thing called imposter syndrome. Does this affect any of you? And how so? Curious.
I'm going to say no. Um, Although I do feel the conditions that lead to syndrome are designed to make to feed into this notion of inferiority. When we know that I think majority of us are bright and brilliant and strong and so capable, that sometimes, I think if you're in an environment where you feel isolated or alone, or there's no one else who, looks like you or shares your same values or background, sometimes that can lead you to question,
Yeah.
Mhm.
is the right environment for me? So I've thankfully, I'm touching wood right now, suffered from imposter syndrome, but I know so many other sisters who have, and it really, I think, weighs heavily on us. I think it impacts self-esteem, our mental health,
Mhm.
and I think having a network where you can say, "Look, this is what I'm experiencing. I'm feeling this way. Can I just test, what I'm going through with you?" I think being able to talk it out can really, really help folks. I've had conversations with so many capable and wonderful women who are questioning, who are going through the imposter syndrome, even though I just know how capable and bright they are. So I
Mhm.
think the way to counter that is what we've been talking about during our wonderful conversation, is around the networks that we, put ourselves in, those we surround ourselves in. And I think the self trust piece is a good counter
Yeah.
to any kind of notions or feelings of imposter syndrome.
Yeah. So well said. It's so interesting too because I think often when we put ourselves in different situations or new situations, or as you said, if we get into a situation when we look around and we think to ourselves, um, do I really belong here because I'm the only person who maybe looks this way or thinks this way? I think again, to your point, Amaral, what helps us is like that strength that we have. I've done this before. And as coaches, so I'm also a leadership coach. One of, coaching 101, Gina, you, you remember this, is they sort of say, when a client is struggling with the confidence to do something or to get through something, you say, have you ever been in a situation similar to
Like
this?
before.
And
Yeah.
they say, yeah, yeah. And can you tell me about it? And how did you get out of it?
Hmm.
And then that's where you hear the story of courage and resilience. But oftentimes we forget that what we did to get to where we are and why we deserve to be where we are because there's so many critics around, including ourselves, right? So I think, yeah, it's really about that, like going back to what you know you can do. What are your skills? Drowning out those voices or looks or perceived voices or perceived looks and saying, look, I got here for a reason and I can do this and I've done it before and to keep pushing through, but it's very hard. I think all of us will encounter it at some point in our life or consistently, but I think the key is to really start working on ourselves. It's that old adage, love yourself before you can love someone else. It's so true.
Hmm.
Like really try to say, what is it about me that got me here? And how do I continue to own the space that got me here so that things don't pull you back because it's so easy. This is what the world is like. I remember taking my daughter to her high school when she was looking at high schools, and we sat in this big auditorium and she looked around and she looked around and then she looked at me and she said, I don't see anybody here who looks like me. And I said, oh, how do you feel about that? She said, that's okay. I think I'm going to be able to do what I do really well. And those are the sort of things that we have to be training our kids and people
Yeah.
around us as well. Like, don't look around. What's around you doesn't matter. You're here, you got here for a reason, and lean into that, but it's very hard. So it's about, like, that's why coaches are around. That's why you seek support from your network. But you have to remind yourself in whatever way you do.
There's a big difference in, I'm thinking about two questions I heard from each of you and how one was me in my earlier life and one is me now. So, Nikki, I heard the do I belong here? That was Gina in, teens, 20s, 30s. I heard Emerald say, is this the right environment for me? That's where I'm at now. Those are very different questions if you put them in the context of a job interview.
Mhm.
Right? Because one is focused on, am I supposed to be at this table? And the other one is, does this table give me what I need to thrive and succeed? Is this table somewhere I want to be? And that agency and that choice is so different there. And to me, it's a very strong indicator of the shifting to a place of self trust from a place of needing that external validation.
Absolutely.
Not easy, though. Not easy at all.
No.
Because there's a piece of me that says, as I'm listening to all of you, I'm like, oh, here's my bias again. If you're raised being told you have to work twice as hard to be half as good, and we all know in this room we've worked twice and thrice as hard, then why should I feel imposter syndrome? There's a part of me that's just indignant. There's also the Jamaican flag that asks me, why should I?
Like,
Which Jamaican? What? That doesn't align
I
culturally.
know.
What are we talking about here? But it
Well,
happens.
I don't know where that phrase or that thinking has even uh come where we feel that we have to work twice or three times, sometimes four times as hard to be accepted or to fit in. That notion that I always push back against because in reality, when you see who you're surrounded by, they are actually threatened by your brilliance and your beauty. So working that hard may not even, do yourself any good because people feel intimidated,
Intimidated.
right, by what you bring to the table. So it can be a very, very challenging situation where one is, trying to deal with imposter syndrome, even though because there is not that space of inclusivity or belonging in the organization. And so, their self-doubt creeps in uh, when, you actually have so much to contribute. But then the voice in your head is saying, oh, do I fit in? Do I belong? Am I good enough?
Mhm.
Because the world around us tells us that we're not.
I feel like with the imposter syndrome for me, it's more, and they had this phrase about like bringing your authentic self to work. I think we've had some conversations about how we feel about that. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think for me, it's not so much about whether I can do something in comparison to someone, it's about how much of me will be able to show up in its full
Mm.
self, like every part of me where I don't have to dial down who I am. I think for me is where my struggle is with imposter syndrome in terms of, how I'm showing up. I think most people that I know will, whether it's outside of work or in work, will be able to describe me pretty much consistently. Like this is who Courtney is. But I think those who are in my close circle will have a much more robust portrait of who I am. And I sometimes I wish I could be that way 100% of the time because it's exhausting having to dial back. So I think that I'd like to get to a place before I retire, and there's plenty of years, hopefully, before that happens, that I will be able to show up 100% of
This
myself.
this is what my mother tells me. Wait till you're my age, then you just don't give a damn
Yeah.
what anybody thinks. You're gonna
Oh,
love it. It's really fun.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can we fast
Mom's
forward,
right.
please?
So let
I've
me
gotta say I've gotta say I
sorry.
have the best boss. She's so, flexible and accommodating and, is encouraging me to invest, in self-care. and that best boss is myself.
Emerald, I knew you were saying that. And I just want to say, just to give a complete contrast, at least every other day, Mark, my husband, cusses me about how awful and horrible and terrible my boss is and how just below subpar treatment the employees receive. And he's talking about me. So clearly,
Yeah.
further mentorship is required here. Which leads me to, I think, what I wanted to ask to take us out of this amazing conversation today. I'd love to have each of you weigh in on if you could give your younger self that needed more of that reassurance, that validation, if you could give that younger self a piece of advice from your current place of wisdom, where you stand in your power right now, what would you tell her?
To be more patient and kind with yourself, um, and to surround yourself with strong, supportive, positive people.
Beautiful.
Mm. I
I
think
think what oh,
oh, go ahead.
go no,
No,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Corey.
I think for me, it's being able to identify my boundaries early and sticking to them. What are those hills you're willing to die on, or what are you willing
Mm,
to compromise on? I think probably, obviously, earlier I would have compromised a lot more. And then, that didn't help when it came to being able to trust myself to make decisions or move forward, whether it's professionally or personally. So I think I'd tell myself that trust your gut. That's your initial boundary right there. If it does not feel right, there is a reason. The whole like my spirit doesn't take to this. Like there is a
mhm.
reason and you may not be able to articulate it, but you are probably right. And that's okay to go with. And I think I would tell my younger self to trust her gut a lot more. Set those boundaries.
Yeah, yeah.
Love it.
I think for me, I would definitely lean into reading the room quickly and
Mm,
responding wisely. And
mm,
why that's a big one for me is you hear it all the time. Read the room, read the room. But yeah, you've read the room, but then what do you do when you read the room? Respond
mm.
to it wisely. And I think it's taken me a long time. I always remember getting different types of feedback from colleagues in the workplace about some of my approaches and thinking, yeah, well, that works for me and that it's getting me far. But it's really, I think, more important than anything else. Like Amarel said, sometimes you're in settings where you do have to dial it up and you do have to dial it down, not to the extent of losing yourself, but just really understanding what's this environment? How should I respond in an environment like this to keep myself happy, but also to keep those around me in a way that we're working and living in a really good ecosystem. So yeah, read the room and read it wisely and just make sure that you respond wisely.
That could be put on a mug that I would put in my office. I love that.
Sure, it's
You
on
all
Temu
had
somewhere. We can find that on Temu. Someone's got that printed on a mug.
Yeah,
right, right?
yeah.
You all had fabulous answers, so I'm just gonna tease them all. And
It's
I really,
leverage.
yours
It's
resonates a
leverage,
lot.
not teefing. It's leverage.
Right.
Yeah,
Leverage it. Thank you. Thank
I like
you.
that. I like
Snaps. Yes. So
it.
yours really resonated with me, Nikki, knowing a part of my dissertation was on chameleon capacity, and it's about
Mm.
being almost too good at reading the room and losing myself. So I would want to tell my younger self, know who you are and your values and what your non-negotiables are, grabbing those boundaries you talked about there, Courtney, to build around those, to understand I'm supposed to be here, as Emerald says, and having all of that in place while reading the room so that I'm not going to sacrifice myself in the name of whatever it is I think I found the room needs.
Correct. Oh, okay.
Wow,
Love
this has
that.
been a cup full of wisdom for me to drink from today. I'm sure that our viewers, our listeners have experienced the same. I hope you all know you got a pitcher full today. It wasn't just, one glass of lemonade or one single margarita. You got the whole darn pitcher. So I am so grateful that you spent your time. Thank you to Amarel. Thank you to Courtney. Thank you to Nikki for being here. Thank you to all of you for tuning in to the Curious Coaches Lemonade Stand. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing. We drop episodes episodes about bi-weekly. There's always some fresh, new, zesty insights for you to gain, and I promise there's great things to come, just as we've enjoyed our tall drink of fresh lemonade today. So until next time, feel free to drop a comment. Let us know what you love, what you'd like to see more of. Share if you think someone else could benefit from learning a bit about what we talked about today. And of course, feel free to like and hype the video too. Always appreciated. And until next time, everyone, please be well.
Thank you. Bye, Gina. Bye,
Thank you. It
Bye,
was
everyone.
Bye.
great. Lovely to be in conversation. Thanks so much.